Hey folks, welcome to the Reframe podcast where we share inspiring stories from people adding value to society. In the 19th episode, we have Norbert Almeida, also known as NORBALM, a security risk and crisis manager with over 22 years of global experience. In this episode, he shares his experiences and motivation as to why he continues to serve the community via his NORBALM alerts about safety and security for the general public. If you get value out of this episode, we'd really appreciate a rating on iTunes and a sub to our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms. Please help us spread the message by sharing this in your network. Let's get into the 19th episode of the Reframe podcast with Norbert Almeida.
So, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Reframe podcast. This is a lockdown series. And today we have Norbert Almeida joining us from Karachi, Pakistan. And we're going to talk about his journey. We're going to talk about what is happening under lockdown, how the world is going to look after the lockdown, and all the things in between. So welcome, Norbert, on the podcast. And let's start. How's the lockdown happening in your part of the world?
Hey, Farooq, thanks. Well, it's for me and my family, it's probably been now almost the sixth week that we've stayed locked down or socially isolated from the rest of the world, primarily driven by conditions in the city beforehand, my knowledge of how things spread, and my own proactiveness as well. Plus, we had a bit of issues in Karachi, particularly in Feb, which were linked to this mysterious odor or smell that spread in the port vicinity, impacted some of the neighborhoods. So that kind of kept the kids home. So the kids have actually been home from, I think, what's it now, mid-Feb. So we're almost into May. So for them as well, it's been a challenge. So so personally, it's a long one, but no plans to step out unnecessary beyond the grocery runs or whatever. At least till beyond Eid for myself and the family. We know the situation. Of course, there are some kind of obligations that you need to. Easter just passed. Easter was celebrated at home as well. So definitely a first for us, first in my lifetime. Well, not the first in my lifetime. We're not going to church on Easter because the church wasn't open. Because growing up in Karachi, we kind of seen curfews of the 90s where things forced us to stay home. The situation. So but for many it was the first time. So watching the Easter week service right from Rome live in your hotel room was kind of a unique experience. So definitely learning the ways.
Yeah, it is a very unique experience for everyone around the world. And with the mosques and churches and all congregational places, malls, everything being shut down, it is tough.
Absolutely.
So how are you managing the kids, man? I need to learn that. My kids are gone completely bonkers now.
Oh, wow. Well, I think so. Yeah, screen time's been the issue. It's all about screen time. How much can you control? And when you're obligated, we're fortunate enough the way our house is kind of built. We have like a small courtyard where they can step out a bit and get some fresh air. But you tend to feel for those who don't. Also, the fact that the kids, I always say, are a bit spoiled because they have all the gadgets they need and have been keeping themselves occupied. But it was in the first few weeks, they actually had a lot of online classes, so it kept them busy. But then once the government took a decision to just enforce this period as a summer holiday, so then all classes stopped. Of course, they have their hobbies, they're connecting, and Zoom. I think I've never used the term Zoom more in my life, and my kids probably do it even more now. They have their weekly friend session, then they have the weekly relative session, and the weekly grandparent session. I'm like, soon I think I will need to have a Zoom session with them from one room to the other because that's where they're living. It is an experience. Of course, they used to seeing me on online to do my work because the way I work, my nature of work. And so for them, it was quick to adapt. It was quite interesting to watch them mimic you at times in their interactions online. So absolutely, it is a challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
This is the Zoom
Mental
generation now.
well-being is something, yeah. I think mental well-being for some is becoming difficult.
Yeah, but you've been working from home for quite some time, on and off. You've had that
Uh,
leverage.
Actually, not just on and off. I've actually been working now. This is almost 8.5 years full time from work from home.
Okay.
While, yes, I do work for a multinational, but my role is such that I've been able to work full time from home for 8.5 years. My team has been, people from all around the world, from Johannesburg, Nairobi, to Nigeria, Lagos, Cairo, Egypt, in the US. So teams based in different parts of the world, connecting at different time zones. The earliest direct report would be 4 hours behind my time, and the latest would be another 4 hours ahead, or something to that effect. So effectively, you manage a schedule around a 2-hour day when everyone was around. So yeah, so for me it was pretty much a breeze. Though, to be honest, I think someone asked me, and I was like, we were discussing it internally as well within our teams. And the challenge has been all of us have effectively worked at home for some period. But the challenge was that it wasn't you anymore. It was everyone trying to work at home at the same time within the same household. The kids had classes, your spouse would have their work, you have your work. And so suddenly your 1 room, 2 room, 4 rooms are all occupied with simultaneous meetings. So it felt like working in the office with no meeting room space available.
Yeah, it's a relief that the internet holds up. the amount of stress.
That's a blessing. Yeah. Of course, then if you're like me, then you probably have 3 connections already lined up, and one for each kind of need. So each one has their dedicated internet, simply because we know the workload, the stress load on the internet is so much.
Yeah.
And so even like now this call, I'm on a different network. They're all on a different network, so that it doesn't disrupt.
Yeah. No, it's changing times, and post-COVID
Absolutely.
also, I think the whole landscape of the entire world and the way that we do business and how companies react to situations is going to change. So in your line of work, you're a security analyst. You are related to a lot of people depend on you and your information and proactive actions. Let's track back a little bit for our listeners and viewers. And let's go back on how it all started and then where you are right now. And we're going to segue in the middle toward your other avenues of your personality that you have developed with time. So where would you want to start and give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, so it was funny because I've been doing a series of recruitment interviews, and when talking to the candidates, one thing, you kind of give yourself an introduction to tell them what you are and who you are, particularly because they are remote interviews these days as well, and people in this past week, I realized I've actually started my 23rd year in the corporate world. Wow. So, don't go by the hair on the color of my hair, but, there's a lot of...
You have at least you have hair. You still have hair. Oh my God, now you're making me jealous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I even had the lockdown beard. It was like I gave it up last week. I got fed up of it. It was as long as the hair. So 23 years in the corporate world now, or the 23rd year. All have been interestingly insecurity. The first 10, 12 years solely working on parts of Pakistan, or then wholly Pakistan, and then moving over to my current organization where I started out as a Pakistan plus the cluster, the Middle East leader, and then moved on to a much larger role, and now working within a global network as well. So a lot of experience primarily based in Pakistan, but traveling the world for work and spending quite a bit of time abroad. But as I say, I'm an accidental security person, and
and you spent 23 years in it.
accidental because if you go through my CV or resume, I never get the terms right. But you'll find that I've done everything but security as form of education. So I actually have an MBA in finance and marketing, and I've never once in my life actually marketed a product. Although I did have a stint doing some audit work, so yeah, at that kind of level of finance. But so security, because and there's a story to it. It just happened that there was a French organization that needed interpreters for a mission that they had to Pakistan, where they were training the local authorities. So it was the French authorities coming to Pakistan to train the local authorities, and they needed interpreters. And so they came to what was the Alliance Française, and still is, and asked for some candidates who could do that interpretation. I was, by then, one of those who had done everything in French that needed to be done as a student of a foreign language. And they offered me that stint of 10 days, took it up. This was some point in 98. And at the end of that stint, they offered me a permanent role with them out of the French mission in Pakistan, the diplomatic mission. And I spent the next 5 years then there working on interesting stuff. Detection of counterfeit visas and ports, anti-drug smuggling ops, anti-human smuggling ops. Yeah, that was a technical cooperation team that I was representing. And again, but it's just my nature that I wasn't interested in just doing, translating from one language to the other. I was like, why didn't you teach me this stuff? And soon enough, they actually taught me, and I became a trainer of trainers for authorities. And it was interesting that, me in my early 20s was standing in front of authorities and officers who probably had 20 years experience at that point, and try training them. So, civilian background, young guy, all of these things that came up, and they were like, it worked. And that's where my career started off. Then 5 years on, I kind of moved. I got bored, essentially. And I wanted, there was this telco that was in their stage. They were building startup stage, which is the biggest telcos in the country. So they were looking for people to start their security function. So I was hired straight out to manage half of the country. So at that point, again, operationally, I'd never done anything on security in the mass public. We went there, did that for 5 years, some tumultuous times, major crisis experience due to different reasons, managed those, and then I think 5 years later, my current organization came after me, wanted to see if I was interested, and I've never looked back since. So yeah, a long journey in security, but its operational side is done with. Now it's more the backhand kind of table setup, the ability to sit and work from home as much as I can. So yeah, an interesting part.
But it has its own frustrations and responsibilities, I'm sure, because it's a lot of people depend on you.
Yeah. So I think within my own field as well, I chose a stream that excited me more, and that was crisis management. So I find myself, at my very best when there's a crisis. And And this is me saying it, but if you ask those who have pulled out through the crisis over the years, the various crises that they've faced, they would kind of second that. It just like, it's second nature for me. It's just something that makes me tick. A curious thing to say that other people's troubles make you, calm and collective and the ability to work through things. But it's
Right.
something I love to do. So I'm driving around the road, and I think ultimately what it is that every single day you wake up and you can have 5 things you want to do by day
Uh-huh.
end. Almost every single day you would have done 55, and those 5 would have still been on that notebook that you started out with,
True.
because that's the nature of my work.
True.
It just, you can't dictate. Yes, there are times you can, but you generally can't dictate how your day is going to be. It's driven by others' needs, and that's what really makes it fun. And again, fun for some, seeing people sweat and break it out and nervous. But being the calming influence in the room helps. It's something I personally would drive. Um, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of out of you, but
Yeah,
if it
I can
makes
imagine.
you tick, it makes you tick.
Yeah, and the great thing is you you branched out into using your skills and knowledge and your experience into helping out the general public as well. And I think this is the perfect time to segue into what we remember as NORBALM alerts, and how did that
Yeah.
start, out of what necessity, and then what it has become now. Let's talk about that
Okay.
as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's now going on 15, 16 years
Hmm.
that essentially, you know how it is, Karachi, the way
Yeah.
things were, there was never really information out there. You would struggle to get information.
Hmm.
And things would change at the drop of a hat, literally. You're driving down one road, and 5 minutes later, that road it doesn't exist. For you never even, you don't even want to admit that you even drove down that road 5 minutes
Yeah.
early. So that's kind of the exaggeration a bit, but that's how it felt for many. And in that phase, I had an operational risk need to address.
Right.
And one of the biggest challenges was getting information. So I kind of grouped in, and there was this peer friend of mine who was a peer, senior peer friend, become a very good friend, Gavin Delima. He was working as a security person in another entity, another MNC at the time. And I think he recently retired as well after all these years of service. So he had a small kind of SMS-based messaging system where he would
Right.
send an SMS off his cell phone to about 3, 4 people.
Hmm.
And these 3, 4 people would, effectively, or security managers, and say this is this, or to either to verify that it's actually working or it didn't work or whatever, just to corroborate the information or say that it was there. And I took that and started sharing it within a smaller core group within my own organization at the time. And soon we found, other colleagues were interested in getting it from us. And they're like, hey, can we, get on this? And we're like, yeah, why? They're like, it seems to be pretty timely and it can help us. We want to go home and we want to know how to go the right road, etc. And those were the beginnings. I think 2005, 2005, June,
Yeah,
July as
and
well.
and I think it's we should basically mention this over here, that this was pre-smartphone and the pre-WhatsApp and the pre
Absolutely, SMS.
yeah,
Yeah.
instant messaging,
So,
pre-Twitter era. So this was all
oh yeah,
SMS,
I mean
text based.
you, you had to mind the 140 character limit, otherwise you'd go into
Exactly.
multiple SMS and how many SMS, and then you had to have the right package because it was sending SMS. So by the
SMS,
time I
yeah.
finished that first year, the first year, I remember I was with the telco at the time, and you have your phone listing that's printed out and sent to you. We were on corporate numbers at the time. It was an interesting conversation. HR came to me like, hey, there's a fair usage policy. And I'm like, sure. They're like, so I'm like, so I'm not going above, the limits or whatever. And we're like, but you send about, we're looking at your bill, and they bring a stack of paper, at least about 200 pages. And I'm like, what's that? They're like, that's
Wow.
your user listing, your text messaging. And I'm like, yeah, so? And they're like, so can you highlight which one is yours and which one is for work? And I found one, which was mine. And I was like, here, okay, I circled that one, and I gave it back to them like within a minute. And they're like, excuse me? They're like, there's 10,000 SMS on here for 1 month. And I'm like, yeah, but this is work, right? I'm sending out alerts and getting information, exchanging information. And they were quite guarded, but yeah, I was given a special dispensation waiver in the system to text as much. But that's the volume. That was within a couple of months. And then moving along through the years as technology developed, I went to, it was BBM back then, BlackBerry Messengers. For those who don't know what BBM is, those were the rage. Funny thing is, many people did not even know how to use BBM, so I did a one-pager with screenshots and created it for that. Just so they could receive my own alerts, I could do that for it. So I remember those. I probably have those emails somewhere. So went from BBM, then it went to Pring, was a software that was able to, you could register and receive. So I used that for a bit.
And this was all voluntary, huh? Oh, this was over and above what you were required to do for your organization.
No, so there was all so this is the general, kind of how it moved to WhatsApp. But so why did I continue at that level? 10,000 messaging a day, a month was ridiculous. At the max, I think one point I was sending about 200 messages in a day.
Wow.
Now this is on top of my, that was extreme.
That's another level of addiction, my friend.
Yeah, but this was all, I would actually pick up this cell phone here. You can see my cell phone. It's like, this is what I actually use to send the alerts. Even today, I don't have any system. I don't have any tool.
Wow.
I send it all just on the cell phone. But so what happened? So, and this is an interesting one for me. So a year or so into sending these alerts, it grew steadily, and it started growing. Internally, it was growing, but then one day around midnight, I get this random call from an unknown number. And because, the nature of my work meant, people would call me from any numbers and I would answer. So I would, and I answered it. And I had this, a lady on the phone who seemed elderly, and she was clearly crying. And I'm like, yes. And so I thought, okay, instantly something's gone wrong, who it is, what. And then the first thing she said was, thank you. And I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, thank you. I'm like, for what? She's like, you saved my husband's life. And I'm like, huh? And I'm like, I don't even know you. What are you talking about? Which husband, And of course, some other thoughts came to my mind. I was like, first, don't let anyone hear this, but I thought, this is some girlfriend's mother calling me for some mess up or something. But no, it was like, she said, you saved my husband's life. The short of it all was that essentially she got the message that I had sent out earlier in the day. Now, I had not sent it to her. It had actually gone. Someone had sent it to someone else, and the change.
Through forwards.
Kind of. Yeah. And so the forwards of today, the WhatsApp forwards, it was the SMS forward. Like that. No trail. So she actually picked up the phone and started dialing people back to find out who was the originator until she found it. She made that effort. But why so? So essentially, the message was that a protest is happening and the road is blocked on XYZ road, whatever it was. I don't even remember the road. I didn't remember at the time as well when she called me. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, so? She's like, so we just got in the ambulance with my husband. He had suffered a heart attack.
Oh, okay.
And I told the driver of the ambulance, that, hey, this road is blocked. I just got a message. And he's like, okay, we'll take the other road. And we reached. And when we reached the hospital, they said, hey, you know what? 5 minutes and you would have been too late. Another 5 minutes and it would have been too late for her. So that's when she realized, she's like, yeah, because she realized if she had gone through the regular route, which they were planning on, they wouldn't have made those 5 minutes. So it was interesting. It's still kind of, the butterflies in my stomach, kind of my nose,
Yeah,
and my
that
nose,
makes
or
it.
whatever
Yeah,
call
that
them,
makes it
throat.
worthwhile.
Even today, all these years later.
Yeah, doesn't that make it worthwhile? Doesn't
Yeah.
make
So
feel.
she did that.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And I always say I don't remember her name because she never told me. I don't have that number. I used to get hundreds of numbers, but I would just say this much. Anyone out there who wants to thank someone for, wants to thank them for receiving these alerts today, should thank that lady actually, because she she proved to me that a simple thing as an SMS can also change and save a life.
Yeah,
Now, of course, it was the content of the SMS important for her, but over the years, that's played out several times over,
yeah,
many
I'm sure.
times. Many
Yeah.
people don't have never come back and told me, or they've told me many years later, and stuff. And that actually spurned out. So these alerts got me thinking, and then that's how I came on Twitter and
Hmm.
started doing it on Twitter. The Twitter kind of spurred people, pushed people to get me to blog,
Hmm.
and to, they wanted me to kind of write. And I was like, look, I struggle to write, one tweet, and you wanted me to write articles or something. They're like, no, get it going. And that blog that kicked off, the NORBALM.com, kicked off, then turned into a regular column for Don on security in the magazine section for over 3 years, almost 3 years. So again, where I just simply provided tips on personal safety to people,
Hmm.
how to manage different things. And now I'm being pushed to by folk to come online and kind of do these video things and stuff. So it's a full spectrum. Started from an SMS that resulted in articles,
Hmm.
but all solely it was the sole intent was just to help people. I
It's
honestly, the effort and time that's involved, there's no return on it for me beyond the thanks at times that you get.
Oh, isn't this a great lesson? And for all my listeners, guys, this is where it really matters. Just that one person thanking and you doing something selflessly for the greater good and not worrying about what you're getting out of it. And just one person thanking you can mean the entire change of of the world around you. And I think that's a brilliant example of what your alerts and what your services are now. That's just because of one person thanking you, which made you continue this for so long after so many years, going through so many technological changes, and after so many years and years, and then now to a point where people actually rely more on your alerts than the headline news and the breaking news. And I've seen this, I will say to my listeners, I've seen this firsthand as well, that a lot of time news channels also quote your tweet or copy your tweet as the breaking news. And that has happened so many times. So
Yeah,
it's come a long way.
it has. It has. And yeah, it reminds me of that one time in one of my organizations when um, I sent a message out, and the HR leader came back to me and said, "Hey, it's not on TV. Are you sure?" And I kind of laughed. And I'm like, so do you want to wait till it comes on TV to guide the people, or do you want to act now?
Yeah.
and and they were like, they had not realized the goodwill I'd earned over the years at that point. And I don't blame them because their first source of news, or their sole source of news at that point, was the television, and they actually
Yeah.
had one placed on the wall next to them. So, so they actually then after that they said, hey, you know what? We don't need this TV anymore. You can have it. I don't need it either. So the rest of the organization used to come there to watch the cricket matches on the TV because they're like, hey, you're not looking at the news. Previously, we only got to see news on it. So can we watch the TV? And so the cricket games would come on during the tournaments and stuff. But yeah, I never forget that one. It's not on news yet, and I'm like, it will be.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. That's the part about where I talk about motivation, and I say, there has to be motivation inside of you to continue things, and then later on, you don't necessarily have to look for a pat on the back all the time. You have to do it with passion, whatever you're doing. It does not matter what people are doing, and that's what we always talk about on this podcast as well. That if you see examples of people doing it, you can go out and do these things as well. And it could be anything. It could be something as simple as sharing information that you have. I mean, just an SMS or things like that. But now, let's move on to the part about. I really, really wanted to discuss this, and when I was making my notes for the podcast, I actually highlighted this one, and I thought I'm gonna speak to you about cyberbullying, because that is a big issue, and with the issue of not being able to limit screen time of our children, and specifically talking about teenagers and younger children, when we talk about cyberbullying, although it can happen to anybody, but looking at the children, so what guidance would you have, or what kind of precautions would you suggest that parents take, and then that the kids take, to stay away as much as possible and safe as much as possible?
So this is something on the lines of a training that I developed with another friend of mine, and we what we do is we call it the online and offline security session. Essentially, I try and bridge the real life world and the risks in the real life world that come to the online world, and vice versa, the online risks that come into your real world. So we've actually we've talked about real case studies. We've done case studies where a child was befriended on Facebook and then ultimately kidnapped. There was a kidnap ransom issue as well. So things like that, we talked about that. We talked about messaging from students giving clear signs that they were duly under stress to the point where then they actually committed suicide. But there were clear indications, of something going wrong. And in post fact, when you debriefed or analyzed this post incident, people realized those things, but they did not know who to reach out to or what to say. So, and that kind of delved into things that you realize that, okay. So for me, it's really simple. I would say the online world is just a replication of your real world and how you behave in the real world. So if you don't have, kids structured online presence, earlier we were talking about, screen time these days with all these Zooms and sessions, etc. If you have no control over your kids from day one in real life, they're going to do anything and everything online as well. But that's one part. The other part is also understanding that parents are at a disadvantage today. We are adopters. The kids are born into these things. Our kids today, they're born with gadgets in their hand. I remember a black and white TV where I literally had two people lifting it, and I tell my kids that, and they look at my face like I'm stuck raving mad, and I'm like, no, I was the remote control for my parents, change the norms. and now my youngest one, he's 7 or 8, he's talking to Siri and getting Siri to do things for him, and I'm like, how lazy can you be? Why can't you retire? I mean, you're telling Siri to, set the alarm for you. I mean, I'd still go and find the app and set the alarm, and although I have the same gadgets, and he's like, Siri, set the alarm, set the counter, and so they are but that's the exact point, right? The kids are very advanced. So you as parents need to constantly upgrade yourselves and update your software. As I say, you need to understand this and understand that just like in real life, and this is how I tell kids as well. In real life, you do not give your house keys to everyone.
Right.
You will not tell them where it's kept. You will hide
Right.
those keys. You will not share them in the front door, the front lock. So how is it that you're sharing passwords with everyone? Or your ATM pin codes. I mean, you just correlate everything. It's like a key. You give the
Right.
password and you're in. Then do you, as a parent, tell your children, hey, you're free to go on the road and shake hands with everyone and give them a hug and a kiss and say, hey, you let's become friends. And if you're not doing that, then how are you permitting it online?
True.
Randomly adding. And parents face that challenge because the gaming world, you are playing online games, you can be added.
Yeah.
So are you aware? I mean, are you aware of what kind of chats the kids are? And even on this tech that we're using right now, Zoom, I mean, you had random, I know, people's had random class sessions. Somebody entered the class and scarred their children. Like the random guys joined their conversation in their classroom chat because it wasn't secured in the early days. People don't know. So even when you're adopting, and I think that's where the responsibility lies, particularly in schools, in colleges, in systems, in the education environment as well as your home. So if you're not able to understand the tech, then ask someone. Google it. That's what I say. Google it. Just say, what should I know about Zoom to protect my children? You will find 1,001 articles. I don't need to give you the big points today.
Yeah.
The internet is a curse for some, but it's a boon for many others. Learn what you want to learn from that. So if you're not going to seek that knowledge and not realize, the realization should come in first as a parent that these are tools that you're not aware of. Your kids are living it. You need to catch up real quick. But once you do, then there are controls. It's not, and how to report. So what's the difference of reporting an online bullying situation if in real life you're being bullied and you don't know how to come to your parents or your elders or your siblings, your older siblings? If you're not able to speak up in the real world, then the virtual world is even it's harder. Or you may confide in someone who seems friendly online and pretends to be that person, that virtual kind of confidant, and then you're leading you into trouble. So I would always say it's contrary to what people say that online is different. I say no, it's very much the same thing. It's just a different medium. The virtual world is just a medium of communication and interaction. Set your rules. And if you're struggling, there are forums. You can always share good links for parents to read up on and stuff. But first and foremost is understand. If you understand the risk, then you can only start to investigate and learn how to. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone listening to this podcast immediately goes and locks their kids up and say, you're not stepping out of the home and there's your devices put in the safe. It's not possible.
No.
You do live in the real world. So these are things that I would say parents need to get a grip on, is to understand what they're doing, what they're permitting. And I tend to talk on and on about these things, but some of these things I'm passionate about them. But I always say, if your son or your daughter, whatever age, says, I am leaving the house and I will see you tonight. There is some, it depends on how it is, the culture you brought up or whatever. Generally, you'd say, okay, do you have your phone on? Yeah, I'll have my phone on. No, I want to have my phone on. Or if my phone was on, I will send you a message and chat you. Or I'm going to X friend's place, I'll be there. There's no mystery. There's no mysterious, not everyone's a spy. You're not James Bond that you need to walk out that door and not tell anyone where you've gone on what secret mission. It's just not the way it is. Even, those on secret missions have a real story to give the family so that it can always be checked out. And this is what I tell people, you should know to some level, at least understand where people are going and what they're doing.
Yeah. So the most important thing is having an open dialogue, open conversation, and a healthy relationship at home. Doesn't matter whether it's
I
the
think,
real
isn't
world
that
or the
for
online world.
everything?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that for everything?
Yeah,
Everything?
but
It comes down to
unfortunately,
that, right?
it does come down to that. But unfortunately, a lot of time people do oversee that, overlook the clear-cut indications and signs that something is wrong, and then regret later on. So that is extremely important, I believe.
Yeah.
Norbert, what I want to talk about as you were growing up in your career, I personally believe that there's always somebody that people look up to, and they should look up to as mentors, as guide, as inspiration. And then in some point in time in our lives, we become that inspiration or that mirror as a mentor to other people who are following us. So this mentor mentee relationship is extremely important for the growth of an individual,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So let's start off. I want to connect it to your mentor. Who was your mentor? Did you, or maybe were not lucky enough to find a mentor at an age where you should have, and now you're repaying it
Mhm.
back as being as mentoring other people around you.
Farooq, I've thought about this, and it's driven primarily as well because in our organization we have this very clearly called out. You can assign yourself or get yourself a mentor,
Hmm.
or become a mentor for someone else, right?
Right.
And that's actually driven quite a bit. And over the years, I've not really had one specific person as well, but that it tends to be because the way my function is, being so working from home, right? 8 years, 8.5 years out of a 10 year. So you name a colleague to me, you may know that colleague, I may not because I've not even seen them
True.
or I've heard
True.
that name. They know me because of by virtue of the work I do, and so they need to reach out to me. But many times, for colleagues call me and they're like, "Hey, we're so and so." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "You're an absolute stranger to me. It doesn't matter what your name is,
Mm.
as long as there's information that you give me that I can verify on our company systems to know that I'm talking to the right person. Beyond that, it's like, so I don't have that social connect maybe with employees today or
Mm.
even with colleagues. And then of course working as a remote manager, I mean, I told you my entire team
Right.
has been from day one for the last 10, 11 years has been remote. I've not had a colleague sit next to me for more than 2 days other than when I'm traveling for meetings, right?
Right.
So another fund who's either reporting to me, a peer or a senior. So I've never been in it for over 10 years. That's the way the structure was and is. But has that hindered me from being? Now, obviously, there's 10 years now, 11 years. I told you 22. I think over my lifetime, I've used situations or comments
Hmm.
or things that different people have said to me at different stages of life to take me forward. And the earliest I can go back to is maybe what my father told me.
Hmm.
My father was a very strict man for when it came to me. It was like I was. He was very tough on me. He would just, there was no leeway given to me. I would have to do the right thing. So I remember we had these stores and the shops, corner stores in the area where you go and buy groceries or whatever.
Hmm.
So one day I was with dad buying something, and I was maybe 6 or 7.
Hmm.
So that's my earliest memory of being taught something. And I wanted a toffee.
Uh-huh.
Back then, a toffee was maybe 10 paisa or 15 paisa one.
Right.
Try finding those pesos here, they don't
Yeah.
exist. Right? So you'd say a 1 cent toffee
Yeah.
in today's terms. So and we didn't have that right now at that point because we had spent what we had brought. We had brought that 50 rupees and we had spent it to buy everything. And this was 50.15.
Right.
And my dad said, "No, I don't have the 15 paisa. You want it, you can walk back home." We were in the same neighborhood, so just
Hmm.
down the road. And he said, "Go back home, bring your money, and then you come and buy it."
Right.
You five. Give me the toffee, you can give me later. He wasn't forgiving me the toffee. so so he gave me, so I went home, brought that. And what that taught me was this. What that said, spend what you have in your pocket.
Right.
If you don't have it in your pocket, don't spend it.
True.
And that goes against everything the world teaches you today. Your credit cards, your easy installment loans, and your car loans, this and that. Now, as the years went by, and to be very frank, you cannot live without a credit card today. If you want to be online, you need to. So there is, you just need them. Yes, some people say I've lived a life without it, but virtually you have a debit card, which is again, significantly cashing in your pocket, kind of situation. And through the years, I've obviously had to do things that required me to spend, which wasn't in my pocket at that time. But
as long as you have control on those finances.
Returning that so even I got a car, my first car. Yeah. So it meant canceling. Or then what I did was I brought in the money as soon as I can and saved every penny to pay that back quicker. And I didn't use out the entire loan period or the credit card. I've always been billed to bill, almost paid out, whatever. I'm the worst kind for a credit card company. I pay all my bills on time. They don't know. So things like that. So that was one key thing. And then I told you this about the message from that lady, all these years later saying thank you. It told me the value of information that you have. Look, the information, and that's where it is. It's like I look at myself today and say, hey, you and I are sitting here, we're talking and sharing experiences, whatever. I could go to my grave with this information and it would make no difference to anyone. Right? Because no one would have known I had the information. But if I have go today, tomorrow, I would have shared something and someone's life somewhere could have changed. Whether they realized it was because of me, whether it was not. And it's not about me, the person. It's just, what I have. And this is what I preach. I'm like, there is no need to hog the information. Yes, the information I've garnered over the years has been through personal experiences, hardships. You've learned and climbed up the ladder, but it's not given to you in a silver spoon or tray. But what good is it if you don't teach people around you? And then it does two things. One is in doing all of this, it's also showing my kids and the extended family around me what to do, and in turn they do their own things, their own ways of doing things. So it's just perpetuating doing the right thing. Where you're not being selfish. Like I said, these alerts, they take hours of my time in a day. And it's done, so recently I've kind of started and people say, hey, you got sponsors or whatever. But the reality is these sponsors are actually, people, again, who are friends who got businesses or started up things and they're trying to reach out to the right resource or contact. And I'm just putting it out there. But I know the recipient of that alert would actually benefit somehow. They would find something that they need. So, the next upcoming sponsor message, as I call it, is about all the safety equipment that you need for COVID going forward, and handling this, for your organization. So people are looking for a resource where to find discounted. The guy is going to give a discounted code triggered based on the alerts as well and stuff. So, people benefiting. And again, people ask me, what do you get out of it? I'm like, the happiness that a friend is succeeding. I mean, he sent me a burger. What the heck? It's not like I can't afford that burger, right? So it's not that. It's just a goodwill gesture. But I will still take my coffee if anyone's giving me an espresso. Please send it over. I have my coffee. That's the only charge I take for sure. So through that, and Farooq, I think just wrapping it up on this point though. So for me, it's all about the people around me, everyone. The biggest teachers in my life have been the students in my classes for the sessions that I've conducted, these government officers who laughed at me and they hardened me. They made me, take ridicule at a very young age and say, okay, in the one ear out the other. Because they soon realized that I had the knowledge and expertise when I So I'm kind of the person who kind of, says, okay, yeah, you laugh, you laugh, you laugh. Now when the test comes and I am grading you, I'll have the last laugh at times. No, you can't do that in real life. But the point being is like, if there's a need, I can embarrass you really bad. But if some need that, that's not a very HR thing to say. But sometimes you let people fail. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that let people fail. This fear of failure will do two things. It'll either improve you, or will get you to do something completely different. And I would rather people fail at things and try to do it right than to just kind of hold their hand and say, here. I could do that. In my line of work as well, and as a crisis manager, because I work with multiple teams, a particular site, particular country with multiple sites, a region with multiple countries, you will see the repetition of the same situation over different markets, and each one challenged and thinking on the same hotline. But here I am, who already seen all of that. Now I could easily just tell them, hey, do it this way. But they never learn. So you give them, you're the safety net, allow them to make some errors, but then bring them back on track quickly. So it's not catastrophic. But if you don't let them see some form of failure within a crisis, they will never learn from that. But when they do, they will never forget it. And they will go on and talk about things for years to come, and they'll work that thing. So I personally believe in failure being the biggest teacher, not so much individuals, but just circumstances that can build you. And learn. I mean, I've learned from kids the right thing. This week, it was just this week, I don't know. Oh yeah, in fact, it was not this week, just earlier today when I was setting up the Zoom. So this is the first actual Zoom call I've had with my login ID. My kids have had multiple already. So I was struggling a bit with it, just first timers thing. So both my sons, they came and they clicked here, clicked there, clicked here. I'm like, hey, you need to tell me how so that I can do it myself. They're like, yeah, but it's so easy. Why don't you know this? I'm like, but they did that. And so that's the point. I was able to learn from my 7-year-old and 10-year-old just to set up this call. And that's the attitude you need to have. It's not easy. It's not easy. You have to suck up a lot of your ego. And you can be embarrassed as well at times. But if you chalk it down to a learning experience, then you move on with it.
Yeah. And that's a great lesson and a great lesson to wind up on. Before we wrap up, Norbert, I want you to please reiterate your social media IDs, your profiles, where people can reach out to you. Anything that you want to say as a end note?
All right. So firstly, Farah, thank you for having me. This is a unique experience. And I know that for the back end, the backstage work that we went into setting this up and the broken lamps and everything in that. But that itself was a learning experience. And it actually gave me the courage to set up and face the camera. As I was telling you earlier, I've actually had a very diverse career. So I was a radio jockey. So I've been behind the mics. It's just not in front of the camera. So
I would love to be an RJ someday. I'm looking forward to an opportunity of working on radio. There was a time when I fantasized. I even made up my own whole radio show, and I used to play it alone. Introduce songs, and I had a unique idea to it all, but then never materialized. Maybe someday.
So, and to your point, never give up, and I think that's my key message. Before you never know where life is. Like I said, my career path has come about because I spoke the right language in the wrong place at the right time. How many people do you know who speak French in Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
And so wrong place, right time, and I ended up speaking, starting a career that again, 22 years later, I realized it was because I spoke French that I have a security career. So likewise, never know what takes you where. And RJ, again, I did it for fun. The irony, and that's another whole story as well, someday we'll tell you, is if you have me back again. But that was funny. I was actually interviewed and I auditioned for the job and I got the job. And the best part was they were offering me the show in Urdu. And, and I was like, hang on, what do you mean? I don't speak Urdu. And they're like, no, we know that. You speak the confused Desi Urdu, and we want that. I'm like, really? You want to embarrass me on air? And so they had to give me the English show in the end because I refused to do the Urdu show with a fake accent on it. Like, look, it comes to you naturally. I'm like, yeah, you're making fun of my Urdu. So again, things. So never think that this is the end. Find your path in anything you do. It's easy. And encourage people. Don't discourage them. It's very easy to discourage someone. Very easy. But that makes you no better person than anyone else out there. Even the next door neighbor's cat can discourage you from walking out the door because it's a black cat, right? So why do that? Why not be the person who chases that black cat out of the way and says, now go?
Right.
Encourage someone to take that step out. So for me, it's that's the message to your fans, your followers, your listeners, and your viewers. And then come back. I am available online quite a bit. I'm on Twitter at NORBALM, that's NORBALM. I have my blog, which is the same ID, norbalm.com. And I take questions and you will get answers. So personal safety, personal, and it doesn't matter which part of the world you are in, the things generally work. Confidentiality.
Right.
I am not getting anything out of this personally. I don't gain, I don't charge. The only thing I'd expect you to is give me some time to respond in case I'm caught up in my day job, but that generally doesn't happen. So a big shout out and thank you to everyone for tuning in, and thank you again for having me on there.
Great. Thank you to have you. And that wraps it up with this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one.